Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Wednesday Coding Practice. Today, we are going to focus on some ICD-10 setup and coding and get familiar with that a little bit for the newer students who have not been able to go through that part of the program yet and want to be able to do or at least attempt the ICD-10 section of the exams and stuff, even though you've not been through that material. So today we're going to focus on that. Um, and this should help you guys get a pretty good foundation for ICD-10 coding. It's not very different from CPT. Um, it is a little bit more involved once you get into the tabular and you start looking at things. It gets more specific than CPT does. But that's all. It's just some extra indenting. You know how CPT indents down to get more specific? ICD-10, it seems like it indents and indents and indents. Like it's just more specific. There's a lot more going on with diagnosis and illness than there are with procedures. A lot more to take into account. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. We'll go ahead and get started. Now that everybody has their manuals, this is the perfect time to do this. Okay, so ICD-10-CM, and this is that huge manual, y'all. The big purple one, the biggest one there is. It's like 10 pounds of purple stuff, right? All right. So the first thing you're gonna want to do, if you have not done so already, and I hope that you have, because I did mention it previously, you want to tab your manual. And guys, this is really, like, it's optional, but it's a bad idea not to do it. Like, it's a bad idea. Like, you don't have to, but I don't know any coders, anybody who uses these manual that doesn't have it tabbed. So it's a time saver when you're going to look for stuff. It's just like CPT, you've got to start in your alphabetic index and then go to your tabular. And that's a lot to flip through when you're looking for something, right? So it's just easier if you tab the sections so you know exactly where you're going. And just like CPT, y'all, this can be done by, like how I have it here, by what that chapter is body system wise, or a probably more effective way to do it is by the code range. Because when we look in the alphabetic index, it gives us a code range to go to, right? So wouldn't it be easier if the tabs had the code range on them so we knew exactly which chapter to go? We didn't have so much to flip through, right? So that's my first suggestion is tab the manual. If y'all do not have any tabbies, you can get, I call them tabbies. You can get them from anywhere that sells office supplies. I think the Dollar Tree even has some. I have a link to Amazon where they're like $4 on the coding workshop page in e-learning on the My Unitech site. So tab the manual. That's very, very important time saver. All right. So in the
Are you talking about the CPT manual or
no,
the ICD-10?
ICD-10. Yeah.
Okay.
Today we're doing ICD-10 introduction to it, basically for y'all, the newer students who haven't been through it. So in the very, very beginning of the book, like one of your first pages after like the little dedication or whatever in the publishing notes, before there's even page numbers, y'all, I'm sure y'all hear me talking about the reference materials and charts and different things in the beginning of the book before it even starts in when it has Roman numerals. This is in that section in the very, very front. And you'll see here that there's one that says symbols and conventions. And one of the ways that ICD-10 is different from CPT is there are a lot of symbols in the book, in the definition, around the definition, stuff that you have to kind of decipher and figure out what it's telling you about that code. Like the biggest one, the most important, the one you're going to see the most, is this little red stop sign at the top. That's on a lot of codes. And what that means is if that code has a little red stop sign in front of it, it means stop. You cannot code this. You cannot use this code. You must get more specific. You have to follow the indentions down. Do not use this code. It is not valid for you to use. Okay? That's what that little red stop sign means. You're going to see that a lot. All right? But there's this section in the front that gives you all of this information. The manuals give you all the information you need to do this correctly. Okay? All those little signs and symbols. And also, guys, there's a legend, just like in the CPT manual. At the bottom of the page, every single page, there's a legend. All right? And it's an abbreviation of this symbols and conventions list. It's a kind of a go-to when you're on the tabular page. You can look down at the bottom of the page and kind of see what symbols are next to that code and decipher it that way. And you'll see a lot of them, some of them more than often, and you'll get used to the ones you see a lot. No big deal. Just like CPT, there are also guidelines for using the ICD-10 CM, and those are in the front. And I don't suggest you sit there and start reading through the guidelines, because it's basically, it's going to tell you all about the signs and symbols again. It's going to tell you about the indentions, and then it's going to get real specific on some things that you may not need to know or care to know, really, or things that may never be relevant to you in your work life. So, but it's a good idea to know that it is there. And again, that's in the front of the book before it starts. Okay, the setup. Your alphabetic index in ICD-10 is in the front of the book. CPT, it's in the back. ICD-10, it's in the front. But it's made the same way. Big grayed out section. Very noticeable. Like half the book is the alphabetic index. Okay? And this is how it's set up. You have a main term that's going to be in red. And if you guys have your manuals, go ahead and open them up and flip to a random page in the alphabetic index, so you can see what I'm see this in real life and what in your hands. It kind of helps. But you'll see a main term listed in red, and then it'll have a line and it'll have that first indentation. Okay? And sometimes, depending on what you're looking at, it'll always be in alphabetic order, but it could be body system or condition related. It could be a body part or illness related. Like you'll see abdomen and then acute. Okay, that's more of a condition, acute. Angina is a condition, muscle deficiency is a condition. And look, you'll see up here, abdominal, see also condition. And then it gives you the list. And these are called your main terms and your subterms. Now, once you get to your tabular index, it gets a little more complicated. You have a section, and then a category, and then a subcategory, and then some subsections down underneath. And again, indents, indents, indents. It just, and you'll notice, okay, ICD-10 is different from CPT in that it is not a 5-digit code. It could be anywhere from a 3 to 7 alphanumeric code. Okay, it's always going to start with a letter, end with some numbers. More than likely, it's going to have a decimal place in it. A lot of the ones that are just the alpha and the first two numeric, the category header, as you call it, can't be used. You see the red stop sign? You can't be used. You have to get more specific than other joint disorder not elsewhere classified. That is not specific enough for an insurance company to pay for it. They won't do it. So you have to indent down. So you see it starts at M25. And once you indent down, it's M25 point, and then it continues on, okay? And you'll see that that's always how it's set up. Alphanumeric, 2 digits for the category, and then point, whatever, as we get more specific, okay? Each indentation adds a character, basically. That's why it can be anywhere from 3 to 7. It just depends. But this is the basic setup of it. You're always going to have a section, and then you can see the whole chapter, diseases of the musculoskeletal system and connective tissue, M00 through M99, okay? Just like CPT, everything, all the codes are in alphabetical order. The book starts at A00 and ends with Z99999 or whatever. But it's all in alphabetic order, chapter by chapter throughout the manual, okay? And your code ranges are gonna be, this would be the code range if, like, next week when we cover this chapter, and if you have the daily question, what is the code range for chapter 13, the musculoskeletal system, M00 to M99? That's your answer. That's the code range for that chapter. Which you can also find, remember how in the CPT manual it's all color coded, the ends of the pages, and they have the chapter and the code range? Same thing with ICD-10. Name of the chapter, code ranges, okay? So it's set up very similar, it just has more information, okay? All right, so let's practice a little bit. And these, I kept these kind of simple since we're just starting out and we're just getting the basics of it. But just to go over real quick our steps to accurate coding. We're gonna find our keyword, look in the alphabetic index, verify it in the tabular. Follow all the directions you may find around the code or in the alphabetic index, any C blah blah, etc. Okay, so keywords, alphabetic index, tabular, follow directions. That's basically it, in a nutshell. All right, so this first one, and remember guys, when we're talking about ICD-10, this is the International Classification of Diseases. So we are talking about illnesses, injuries, things that are wrong with the patient. For CPT, it was procedural terminology, right? Procedures, what's done for the patient, to the patient, on the patient. ICD-10 is all about what's wrong with that patient. What did that patient come in there for? All right, so our first one is anemia, unspecified. So that's pretty simple. We're just gonna straight up go to anemia in our alphabetic index, which again, that's in the beginning of the book. So those of you that have it, let's go ahead and look that up now. And y'all, the page number is gonna be correct. I got the 2023 manual. So we'll actually be on the same page.
D64.9.
D9. All right, did you verify that in the tabular? Or is that just what you found in the alphabetic index?
That's just what I found.
Okay. So that's where we want to go. Let's see. I've got page 108 in the alphabetic index for anemia. And then this is unspecified.
You said we were playing games on Facebook.
And if y'all notice, anemia goes on for pages in the alphabetic index. There are a lot of different types of anemia that affect a lot of different types of the body. So let's see. Yep, I'm not seeing the word unspecified in there. I would always follow the list down to see if that was there. And since it's not, we go to that D64.9 that you found. And actually, I have these tabbed. All right, so D64.9. That's going to be on page 741. All right, so let me know when y'all are there and we'll talk about it.
I'm there.
All right, good deal. Okay, so you will see if you find D6 4.9, all right, you'll see anemia, comma, unspecified. That's about as clear cut as it gets. There's nothing, if you look right underneath it, you'll see that another section starts there. So there, you can't indent down, there's nothing below it. But if you follow it backwards, if you look up the list and then on the page to the left and see where that section starts, it's always a good idea to look at the beginning of the section, because sometimes they put little snippets of information and guidelines right in with the definitions, okay? At the beginning of the sections, like especially in cases where, like say somebody had an accident, but it's not the first accident they've had. It's like the second or third accident of this same type of accident, like they cut their arm or something like that. But this is the second or third time. You would look up the injury for the arm, and more than likely it would have this little box that says like A, D, or F, or something like that. And it's going to be initial encounter, subsequent encounter, and sequela. What that means is initial is the first time that this person has had this injury. Subsequent is this is the second time this person has had this injury. And sequela is this person has had this injury quite a bit. Okay. So you would have to add the appropriate character from that little box, but you wouldn't know that unless you followed it back up to the beginning of the chapter and found that out. So I always like to follow it back and make sure that I'm not missing anything. All right. And it doesn't look like I am. There's a lot of different, anemia goes on for a minute, but there's nothing else that's as dead on as what we were looking at with D6 4.9. So yes, that would be the correct code. That would be the code that you'd use. And if y'all go to work for a general practitioner, that code is one you are going to see a lot. And the last one, acute recurrent sinusitis, unspecified, you're going to see that code a lot too. A whole lot. Especially during allergy season. Good Lord. All right, so let's move on to number 2. Acquired clubfoot, left foot. All right, so where are we going to start with that, y'all think?
Oh, I already found it.
All right, so where did you
This is
start?
it. In the index.
With what word?
And then, clubfoot.
All right, and what did you find when you started clubfoot?
Well, I just went to the page. I can go back to it. Hold on.
That's okay, I can tell you what you find. All right, so if you look at clubfoot, it's going to tell you like see deformity, limb, something like that. It's going to give you some direction. All right, and that is on page 153. So if y'all look at that, and please excuse my child that is freaking out in the back of the house, if y'all can hear her. So where I would start with that would be clubfoot, because that's obvious, right? That's the illness or the injury or the problem. But like I said, when you see clubfoot in the thing, it says congenital, and then for acquired, which is what we have here, acquired, it says C deformity, limb, clubfoot. All right, so that tells me that's not bringing me to a code. That's bringing me to somewhere else in the alphabetic index. So instead of clubfoot, it wants me to look for deformity and then find clubfoot under that. So if I find deformity, and that's going to be on page 188. Excuse me. All right. Sorry about that. But if you find deformity, and again, deformity is another one of those that goes on for pages in the alphabetic index. But we can follow this first indentation down until we find, it said C limb. So it's in alphabetic order, so I know It's going to be on that next page. All right, it's in the third column on the left-hand page. You follow the first indentation down till you see limb acquired, and it says M21.90. But if you follow it down, you see it says claw foot, claw hand, club foot, club hand. So what we're looking for is a club foot, an acquired club foot. So it brings us to M21.54. Everybody see how I got that? How we got there? We started with clubfoot, but it wanted us to go to deformity. So we just followed its directions until we found our code. But we don't know if that's our code because we still have to verify it in the tabular. So it's given us M21.54. So let's find that in the tabular. But does anybody have any questions on how we got there? No? Awesome. All right, so M21.54. Yeah. All right, and I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but in the alphabetic index next to the code it gave us, it also had a little red stop sign. And like we discussed earlier, we know that we can't use that code. So we have to go to the tabular and verify and see what actual code it's going to be. So we go to M1 or M21.54. That's on page 1056. And let me know when y'all are there. I want y'all to tell me which code it is. What's going to be the correct code? Is anybody looking for it, or are y'all at work?
I'm at work. I have my book to look.
That's all right, girl. Appreciate you being here. You can follow along later if you need to. Looks like Asia's up and walking around. All right, I will go ahead and explain this one out. All right, so on page 1056, in the left page, the right column, pretty close to the top, you'll see M21.54. It says acquired club foot, which fits our stuff, right? Acquired club foot. But there's that red stop sign, which means we can't use that code. We have to get more specific. So if you look down to that, when it indents down, you'll see M21.541, acquired club foot, right foot. M21542, acquired club foot, left foot. M21.549, acquired club foot, unspecified foot. So which one's going to be our code?
I think the M21.542.
Correct. M21.542, acquired club foot, left foot. Because that's exactly what we're dealing with here, right? So it always wants you to be as specific as possible, especially when we're talking about hands, feet, digits. We need to know if it's on the left hand, the right hand, if it's bilateral, if it's whatever it is. We got to be as specific as we can be. But again, the book tells us that, right? That's what the little red stop sign's there for. To let us know, hey, we need to get more information. All right, so let's look at number 3. Acute recurrent sinusitis, unspecified. All right, so where are we going to start with that one? Sinusitis, right?
Sinusitis.
Right. That's exactly right. That's our illness that our patient's dealing with that day. It's going to be on page 429 in the alphabetic index. 429. Okay, there we go.
And the code that I got was J01.91.
All right, yes, that's where the alphabetic index is leading us to. Sinusitis acute.
It's not J0121.
Mm-mm.
No, it's not 1.91.
Nope, because that recurrent is related to it's indented under something else.
Oh, I
Ethmodial.
see.
Ethmodial.
I
I'm not
see.
sure what that is, but that recurrent is talking about that right above it. Now, if you keep going down a little bit, the indention, like you'll see there's a line, and that's where acute is. And then there's a second line, but some of the stuff kind of stops in the middle between the two lines. It's like between those two lines, there's 3 indentions, right? There's acute, and then the indention that has ethmodial, frontal, involving more than one sinus, and so on. And then it indents down even further from there under each of those options. But if you follow acute down, you'll see that under ethmodial, they have recurrent if you just keep going down. And it brings you to J01.91. So J01.90.91, that's pretty close. So let's go there and see what we find. And that is going to be on page 955. All right. So J01.9 is on the right-hand page, left-hand column, kind of close to the top. J01.9, acute sinusitis unspecified. All right, but we have a red stop sign, and it says 01.91 had recurrent. So let's look under that. J01.90, acute sinusitis unspecified. J01.91, acute recurrent sinusitis unspecified. So there we are, J01.91. Now, hopefully, if you would have stopped at acute and went to the J01.90, Romanique, I believe once you got to that page in the tabular, you'd have realized that you needed to use the 01.91 because of the word recurrent. And I will also point out to y'all, do y'all see how the word recurrent is highlighted in purple? If y'all,
That's the one I said, the 01.91. That's not correct?
No, it is.
Oh, okay.
It is, yeah. You got it right. I was just saying, if you would have stopped at acute and went to the 090, you would have hopefully still seen that under there. So either way would have probably worked. Either way. But it's always a good idea to follow the list down just to make sure that nothing fits your scenario just a little bit better. All right, so there's no other directions or anything that go along with this. So we're going to run with that. And there was something I wanted to say, and it just flew out my head.
What does recurrent being in purple mean?
Thank you. Thank you. That's what it was. Okay, the words that are highlighted in purple, a lot of times that's just that's the difference in the codes. That's like the like you see how J0190 is acute sinusitis unspecified, and then the only difference in the 191 code is the recurrent, the word recurrent. They're just pointing out the difference. That's all they're doing with those highlighted things. They're just pointing out the difference in each of those codes. And you'll see that there's other highlights. There's some stuff highlighted in yellow, blue, orange, all over the place. But again, if y'all look down at the bottom of the page, hey Manu, if you look down at the bottom of the page, it tells you what all those highlighted things mean, okay? And if you look down there, you see where it says purple highlight, keywords. The purple highlight is keywords. Those are the keywords, the main differences in each of the codes. Now, you will come up to some codes, and we'll get to those, we'll get more in-depth next week on placeholders and different things like that. Because there are some codes that they'll give you, it's like the alphanumeric in 4 digits, but they want 7 digits out of it. They want you to bring it out to 7 digits. So you have to add in placeholders. We'll discuss that next week. We'll get more in depth with it. If you guys want some practice on this, check out your workbook, the Bucks step-by-step workbook, and go through some of the early chapters, like I think chapter maybe 2 or 3, somewhere in there. But you will find some ICD-10 coding practice if you're so inclined. Do y'all have any questions about ICD-10, finding how this process is different than CPT, anything at all throwing y'all off? No, pretty straightforward so far. Am I making sense? Sometimes I wonder if I'm explaining things clear enough. Okay, good. Perfect. All right. Well, this will give you a good foundation, a good base in ICD-10 to help you start working on those codes. Again, guys, I am not going to hold it against you that you've not been through the material yet, okay? I'm not gonna grade it real difficult. In fact, if y'all haven't, I don't know if y'all have caught on to this yet, how I grade the coding parts of the exams. If y'all attempt it, usually they're worth about 5 points. And I do this like this because instead of giving y'all an exam with 50 questions that are 2 points apiece, I'd rather give y'all 20 questions that are 5 points apiece and give y'all some good bonus opportunity to make up for that. So, number 1 on your exams, don't ever leave anything blank. At least guess, because I give you 2 points just for making a guess. Okay? If you get to the right section of the CPT book, but your answer's wrong, I'm giving you 3 points. If you get to the right section and the right group, but you're just like a digit off, you missed one thing, I'm going to give you 4 out of 5 points for that. And if you get it right, I'm going to give you 5 out of 5 points for that. So at least try, okay? At least give it a try and see what you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how quickly you can pick up on it, especially if you've been okay with CPT. ICD-10 will be cake for you as soon as you get used to it.
Our last exam, I add like a note to the exam thing because some of them was marked wrong.
A
They were
note
correct.
on
Yeah,
the chapter 12?
our last exam. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Or
I've already
13.
graded it.
I didn't see any corrections on it because I left it was underneath the comments where I saw that I had
Take another
had
look at it,
something.
but you don't have to let me know when it marks them incorrect and they're correct, because I manually grade your exam. I look at all your wrong answers anyway and mark them correct if you got them right. And I know I've already graded all the chapter 12 exams, unless you turned it in within like the last 24 hours. If you turned it in late, it probably.
No, I was on time.
Okay, then it should be already graded and fine. If you look at it and there's still something wrong that I didn't catch, then by all means let me know so I can go back in and take another look. But usually I catch all the errors that the system makes. Yeah, I look at every wrong answer you have on every single exam, every single student. A lot of times it won't give y'all grades until I chime in on the bonus question. So don't leave anything blank on your exams. And also, I'm gonna re-say this because some folks, none of y'all, I don't think, but some folks didn't catch on last week with the little hint I gave. We're gonna be covering these chapters one at a time, right? Chapter 12, then chapter 13. We're hitting body system by body system in order. So on the exam, for like the chapter 12 exam was anesthesia, right? All of the codes should have come from the anesthesia section. If you got a code that was from another section, like all of them should have started with 0. If you got a code that started with a 4, that was in the wrong section of the book. That's probably not the correct answer. Okay, so whatever chapter we're working on, check those code ranges and make sure that your answer on your exam fits in that code range, because that might be why it's wrong, is that you're not in the right code range. You got to the wrong code some kind of way. So that's something just to pay attention to. Easy way to kind of double check your work. Make sure that all of your codes are matching the chapter that we're studying. Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns or anything, y'all? I have not graded
No, ma'am.
the exams yet. I have not. Haven't even looked at them. But everything else should be pretty well caught up, except for like this week's assignments. Everything from last week should be good to go. Okay. Well, if that's it, y'all have a blessed evening, and I'll see you tomorrow at 4 for our weekly meeting. And thank
You
y'all.
too, baby. Thanks, you too.
Thank y'all for coming. Thank y'all for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
He watches.
Really appreciate it.